And for the next half hour, I'll be reading from the Investigative Post on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Sheriff Garcia's missing oath of office. Sheriff Garcia insists he sent his notarized oath card, required by law, to the county clerk. The clerk's office says they have no record of it. Erie County Sheriff John Garcia cruised to victory at the polls last year, facing no opponents in the primary or general elections. However, he may have neglected a critical step to beginning his second term, filing an oath of office with the county clerk. The clerk's office confirmed it has no current oaths of office on file for the sheriff or his second in command under Sheriff Bill Cooley, and no record of receiving them. Garcia, through a spokesperson, claimed his office had sent the necessary documents through the county's intra-office mail and were surprised to learn the clerk didn't have them on file. Many public officials in New York and all elected officials are required by state law to file oaths of office within 30 days of the beginning of their term or appointment. County officials like Garcia file their oaths with the county clerk's office. For many, failure to do so results automatically in removal from office. In Garcia's case, it would mean he has been collecting a paycheck to which he's not entitled for the past 3.5 months. It would also mean he's been discharging his duties as sheriff without legal authority to do so, according to state law. Erie County Executive Polenkars said his office is reviewing the matter, which could have serious consequences or could be a game of gotcha between Democrats and Republicans. As of Monday afternoon, the county clerk's electronic records showed no record of oath cards filed by Garcia or Cooley. Michael Cecchini, a spokesperson for Erie County Clerk Mickey Kearns, confirmed the office had no oath cards on file for either man and no record of receiving them. According to Chris Horvatis, the sheriff's spokesperson, the sheriff and undersheriff signed oath cards on January 5th and sent the originals via the county's mail system to the clerk's office. He said Garcia learned from Erie County Attorney Jeremy Toth that the clerk did not have the documents on file and forwarded a copy to Toth's office. Peter Anderson, a Polenkars spokesperson, would not confirm whether the county attorney had received copies of the signed oath cards, waving off the question as not relevant. This seems like an issue between the sheriff and the clerk to find out what happened there, Anderson wrote in an email. The county attorney isn't the person who files these oath cards, it's the clerk. Horvatis, via email, provided copies of the signed and dated oath cards to Investigative Post, but no evidence that they'd been filed with the clerk, as state law requires. He insisted the sheriff met his obligation when the original oath cards were sent to the county clerk's office. Cecchini, from the clerk's office, noted that most county officials file oaths of office in person and receive a receipt as evidence that they've done so. None of the county's other elected officials have had any trouble filing their oaths. All 11 county legislatures began new terms in January, and all filed their oaths of office, according to the county clerk's records. Michael Keene, the district attorney, filed his oath after winning election in 2024. Polenkars filed an oath after winning his 4th term in 2023. Mickey Kearns, the county clerk, filed his oath after he was last re-elected in 2022. Both Garcia and Cooley successfully filed oaths in January 2022 at the beginning of Garcia's 1st term, according to clerk's records. The consequences of failing to file an oath of office can be severe. A refusal or neglect to file results in vacancy, according to the state's public officers' law and court rulings. No excuses, according to a 1997 article in the New York State Bar Journal, no exceptions. In fact, the state law governing counties carves out an exception for county clerks, sheriffs, and district attorneys. Those officials aren't automatically booted from office when they fail to file their oaths. However, the law says they shall not perform any duties of the office nor be entitled to any compensation until they do, according to the law. Garcia's salary is $150,000 per year, meaning he's collected more than $40,000 in paychecks since January. Erie County Controller Kevin Hardwick, who oversees the county payroll and whose oath card is current, according to clerk's records, declined to speculate on the situation. "I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV, so I will defer to the real lawyers on the process here," he said. Poloncarz said in a statement that it's unclear what the consequences for Garcia could be. There are varying interpretations about whether an office is deemed vacant but a holdover exists, or the office is not deemed vacant but the office holder should not have been paid, depending on the office and the law applied, he said. Ultimately, a decision of a New York court of law may be required to confirm the correct course of action in this matter. Poloncarz, a Democrat, has said he will not seek a fifth term as county executive next year. Garcia is on the short list of possible Republican candidates to succeed him. So is Kearns, the county clerk. Hardwick is a Democratic contender for the seat. Residents again blast proposed data center. A crowd of more than 100, occasionally rowdy, raised a number of objections, including the potential for the facility to impair the health of those living nearby. For the third time in a little more than a year, residents and advocates packed the Town of Alabama Fire Hall to register their opposition to a massive data center campus planned for the Stamp Industrial Park in rural Genesee County. It was a raucous scene. When the crowd of more than 100 agreed with the speaker's opposition to the data center, they whooped, hollered, whistled, and clapped. When two construction union representatives spoke in favor of the project, noting it could result in some 6,000 jobs over 5 years of building, the crowd booed. And when the officials running the meeting urged the crowd to settle down, they themselves were booed. "Can we ask you to come back up at the end, please?" begged attorney Adam Walters 2.5 hours into the meeting after Alabama resident Cheryl Cords soared past her allotted 3 minutes of speaking time. She said she was particularly concerned about noise and vibrations from the data center. "No," Cords replied curtly as others in the crowd shouted, "Are you interested in hearing us? And you guys don't care," at Walters and Mark Massey, President and CEO of the Genesee County Economic Developmental Center, which is pushing the data center. "Everybody please, let's just relax," Massey said. The hearing, like the one before it in March, lasted 5 hours. The Economic Development Center held a second public hearing on the project because its video recording of the first one did not meet legal standards. At Thursday's hearing, 2 cameras recorded each speaker as 2 stenographers took a transcript of their remarks. Concerns from the crowd ran the gamut. Noise from the data center would harm the health, humans, and wildlife alike. Proposed tax incentives of $1.46 billion are offensively large. The neighboring Tonawanda-Seneca Nation could see its forests damaged. And should the data center's tenant run or train artificial intelligence systems, the facility could contribute to job losses here and elsewhere in the nation. The $19 billion project by Stream U.S. Data Centers, if approved by the Economic Development Center and Town of Alabama, would cover more than 38 football fields at Stamp and use 500 megawatts of electricity, enough to power 400,000 homes. A total of 600 megawatts is available to the industrial park, which has been under construction for more than a decade. The subsidy package is among the largest ever proposed for a data center in the nation. In addition to the construction jobs, officials with the Economic Development Center say the data center will employ 125. The bulk of the financing for the project is coming from private equity firm Apollo Global Management, which is led by Mark Rowan, an associate of the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Residents said they were concerned about all of that. Terry Abrams, a member of the Tonawanda-Seneca Nation, who said he lives right around the corner from the proposed data center site, took issue with the subsidy package. which at $11.7 million per job is among the richest ever for a data center. But he said the social costs of the data center are even greater than the proposed subsidies. The true costs are the social costs, the environmental costs, the spiritual costs, and those cannot be measured, he said. Those do not fit neatly on an Excel spreadsheet. One of those costs, several speakers said Thursday, could be negative health impacts caused by the data center's noise and vibrations. Those are the result of the facility running fans and other equipment 24/7 to keep the computer servers inside cool. In North Tonawanda, residents for years have complained of noise and vibrations from a nearby crypto mining facility which uses similar equipment as a data center. In a lawsuit filed against the crypto mining company earlier this month, the residents say the facility has caused them to suffer increased stress, insomnia, and migraines. Such health impacts were the subject of Cord's time at the podium. She said she was particularly concerned about the noise and subaudible frequencies that are known to emanate from data centers. We're not going to hear it, but our cellular energy of the human body is going to be absorbing it, she said. When this is all said and done and the data center is up and running, what does it mean for us who live here? Dr. Kirk Skirdo, a Buffalo physician who has worked with members of the Tonawanda Seneca Nation for years, said he shared those concerns. It's the low-frequency sound that nags at us. It prevents us from sleeping, he said. Everywhere that they build data centers, folks feel constantly annoyed. They get frequent headaches, ringing in the ears. It even raises blood pressure and causes heart disease. Other speakers Thursday questioned why members of the Economic Development Center's Board of Directors weren't sitting at the front of the room, hearing concerns from the crowd. Board Chairman Craig Yunker attended the meeting but sat off to the side. During an intermission, he declined to speak with Investigative Post about residents' concerns. Officials with the Economic Development Center refused to say how many members of their board attended beyond Yunker. This is the biggest thing that the Genesee County Economic Development Center's ever done, right? How come the board members aren't sitting here listening? Questioned Tom, a Pembroke resident who declined to give his last name. Yunker's son, Christian Yunker, is chair of the Genesee County Legislature, and he and other local leaders have said the data center, despite the tax breaks, would provide needed revenue for an overhaul of the local water system. In an email Friday, he said he watched a live stream of the meeting online because he was out of town. Victoria Geit, a member of the Tonawanda Seneca Nation and a candidate for state senate, said any benefits to the community were outweighed by the harms caused by the data center. Enough is enough. Read the room, she said. We need to invest in ourselves, not this. I understand your incentives and all of that. Look, we don't want them. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Investigative Post on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Upstate New York ICE arrests surge under Trump. Many detentions were due to changes in federal rules that stripped immigrants of legal status. More than two-thirds had no criminal record. ICE arrests of migrants across upstate New York more than quadrupled last year following Donald Trump's return to office. A total of 3,722 people were arrested by Immigration and Customs Enforcement between January 20th, 2025 and January 21st of this year. That compares to 787 arrests in 2024. The Trump administration has said repeatedly that it's targeting only the worst of the worst, but federal data analyzed by Investigative Post shows that less than one-third of those arrested in upstate had a criminal record. Of those, half were already behind bars. Agents merely picked up their targets from a prison or jail. Rather, the spike in arrests is due, in part, to the federal government changing the rules on migrants who are living in the country legally, enabling agents to detain them. Slightly more than half of those arrested by ICE last year, 1,971 people, We're in the midst of the asylum process that generally allows migrants to live and work in the country legally without danger of arrest. The Trump administration, however, has changed numerous policies, stripping migrants of protections and resulting in their arrests while their cases wind through the courts. In 2024, under President Joe Biden, 78% of those arrested in upstate had exhausted their legal options to remain in the country and were issued final deportation orders. Under Trump, just 47% of arrestees had final deportation orders. We've seen the Trump administration change the rules on immigrants drastically, said Mario Bruzone, Vice President of Policy for the New York Immigration Coalition. They have really focused and really driven the mass deportation agenda by focusing on everyday immigrants. Despite the sharp increase, the number of arrests in upstate New York ranks last among ICE's 26 field offices nationally, accounting for just 1% of 340,122 made during Trump's first year back in office. Still, the arrests represent a sharp increase over years past, Investigative Post found. Across the 8 counties of western New York, arrests jumped from 464 in 2024 under Biden to 1,489 under Trump, a 220% increase. Nearly 9 in 10 arrested under Biden had criminal records or were already imprisoned, the vast majority at Wendy Correctional Facility east of Buffalo. Further examination of the Western New York numbers shows that of the nearly 1,500 arrested, more than 2/3 were native to Mexico or Latin American countries. 2/3 of all arrestees have since been deported. Nearly 3/4 were picked up in a raid, traffic stop, or on the street. According to observers, these arrests often involve agents in an unmarked vehicle demanding proof of citizenship and spiriting arrestees away quickly. The vast majority of those arrested in western New York ended up at the ICE detention center in Batavia, which has been overcrowded for months. What we saw ICE do this past year in western New York is devastating, said Assembly Member Jonathan Rivera, who noted the mass arrests could harm the local economy. We will have problems in healthcare because we will lose workers. We will have a problem in construction because we will lose workers. We'll have problems in our service industry. A spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security said the agency has been delivering on President Trump's promise to the American people to arrest and deport criminal illegal aliens, including murderers, rapists, pedophiles, gang members, and terrorists. We will continue to deliver on the president's promise to make America safe again, the spokesperson added. Parsing the numbers. The data, released by lawmakers and academics with the Deportation Data Project, is the most comprehensive look yet at Trump's immigration crackdown. Data for ICE's Buffalo office covers 48 counties in upstate, including western New York. Excluded are the state's remaining 14 counties in Long Island, New York City, and those immediately north and northwest of the city. The ICE arrest data is an undercount of those affected by the immigration crackdown. It does not include, for example, an unknown but significant number of arrests made by Border Patrol agents or other agencies involved in immigration enforcement. Detention data offers a slightly clearer view of the crackdown. Most of those arrested are initially sent to the Federal Detention Center in Batavia, where the population last year was double the number of ICE arrests. Batavia housed 7,300 detainees last year, compared to nearly 3,400 over the course of 2024. Additionally, the data shows for the first time other facilities, including Border Patrol stations and local jails, were used to hold migrants last year. Some 300 were booked into the Border Patrol station in the town of Tonawanda, while another 475 were held at the Allegheny and Niagara County jails. Niagara County Sheriff Michael Filicetti, a Republican, has since announced he would limit his agency's cooperation with ICE, detaining only migrants accused of crimes. The data shows that ICE last year also stepped up its involvement in immigration enforcement at the bridges between Western New York and Canada. While U.S. Customs and Border Protection typically operate those sites, ICE made 78 arrests at the bridges last year. None were recorded in 2024. It took the Trump administration several months to ramp up its immigration operation. ICE under Biden averaged 130 arrests per month at its peak in 2023. It took until March last year for Trump's ICE to beat that rate. Since June, it has averaged 385 arrests monthly. Latinos hardest hit. The data shows nearly two-thirds of those arrested last year across upstate were Latinos from countries including Ecuador, Mexico, Guatemala, and Venezuela. Most of them lived in or near urban areas like Buffalo, Rochester, or Syracuse. Ecuadorians were arrested more than anyone. Last year, 875 were arrested, compared with 96 in 2024 and 170 in 2023. Mexicans, too, have been a target. Last year, 497 were arrested, compared to 144 in 2024. Ecuadorians and Mexicans also topped the list of those arrested in Western New York's 8 counties. Alberto Capus, publisher of Buffalo Latina Village, a monthly newspaper, said the community wasn't adequately prepared for Trump's crackdown. "We got caught with our pants down," he said. "I knew it was going to happen. My concern is that the community did not know that it was going to happen." The different nationalities, Capus said, aren't sufficiently interacting with each other. They ought to, he said, but many people are simply living day to day, trying to survive. Things are not going to get better, they're going to get worse. We're trying to alert the community. There's a storm coming, and we have to be prepared for that. Arrests continue. The data shows arrests have not slowed in the first months of 2026. Through March 10th, 834 have been arrested across upstate. If that pace holds, arrests for this year will top 4,300, more than last year's 3,722. A lawsuit filed last week in federal court in New York City offers a recent example. In late January, a Latino couple living in Buffalo was arrested in the parking lot of a Walmart in Cheektowaga. "Immigration, immigration. Let me see your papers," an agent shouted at the couple as they were getting into their Hyundai, the lawsuit states. The husband and wife, known by their initials FRP and RCR in the lawsuit, presented the agent with their work authorization, Social Security, and state ID cards. Both have active asylum cases. Before he looked at the documents, the agent told them that they were detained and not to make a scene, the lawsuit alleges. He spoke on a radio device in English and told RCR and FRP that they were illegal. The agent had no warrants for their arrest. The couple was detained separately, with RCR, the wife, sent to an ICE detention center in Louisiana, while FRP, the husband, was sent to Batavia. Both suffered health complications in lockup. In Louisiana, the wife, who is 55, contracted COVID-19, developed an ear infection, a tooth infection, and a gastrointestinal condition with blood in her stool, the lawsuit states. The agents at the Louisiana facility did not provide the wife with a change of clothes or allow her to bathe. She had to sit in soiled underwear for 3 days. With her asylum case pending, ICE released her on $25,000 bond after she'd been detained for a month. In Batavia, the lawsuit alleges ICE withheld thyroid medication for the husband. The lawsuit claims agents told the 63-year-old they would only provide him medicine if he agreed to be deported. Agents also did not allow FRP to shower or brush his teeth, and they did not give him any water, the lawsuit claims further. When he asked for water, the agents told him to drink from the toilet. He too was eventually released after he posted bond. Along with 6 other plaintiffs, the couple is suing federal immigration agencies, asserting they were racially profiled and illegally targeted. The lawsuit says the couple fears they'll be profiled and arrested again. An ICE spokesperson did not return a request for comment on the lawsuit. I am going to save newspapers in America. The new owner of the chain, whose holdings include the Buffalo News, says he knows how to fix the industry. The problems run deeper than his solution, however. The new majority owner of Lee Enterprises, the parent company of the Buffalo News, says he has the secret sauce for saving the newspaper industry. His plan for doing so involves doubling down on local coverage, right down to reporting on high school sports. It's called hyperlocal in the business. It may be part of the answer to what ails daily newspapers, but only part. I'm going to save newspapers in America, David Hoffman told Forbes. Meanwhile, Lee Enterprises is heading towards a legal showdown with the Associated Press. Lee said last month it wants to cancel its contract with AP. The wire service maintains it has a legally binding agreement. I counted 19 AP stories in Saturday's print edition of the News, mostly national, international, and sports stories. I don't know how the News plans on replacing that content. It dropped the New York Times as a content provider earlier this year, so there's a lot of ground that needs to be covered. The AP announced last week it intends to downsize its news staff. Fewer jobs, fewer people. That's the depressing reality of the Buffalo-Niagara economy, as reported by the News' David Robinson. We lost 700 jobs in January alone. We're down to 11,200 residents in the past 5 years. The revised job numbers show that we are still down 6,700 jobs from pre-pandemic levels, while the nation has long since recovered and has gained 4% more. If Buffalo-Niagara had managed to recover at the same pace as the rest of the country, we would have 23,000 more jobs than we do now. That is a lot of paychecks and consumer spending that we're missing out on. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Investigative Post. We read from the Investigative Post on Thursdays at 8:30 a.m. Your reader has been Patty Young. Thank you for listening.
Good morning. Welcome to another broadcast day on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, a private not-for-profit organization. Radio Reading volunteers broadcast daily readings of newspapers, magazines, and books to area blind and pretty handicapped persons throughout Western New York and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. As always, please feel free to contact us with your comments, suggestions, or any questions you may have. Our phone number here is area code 716-821-5555. And as always, please feel free to contact us with your comments, suggestions, or any questions you may have. And please stay with us. Rainbow Full News is coming up next.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind.